Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Preserves, and welcome back to another edition of Band of the Week. This week we are going to feature a band, and that band is Ezio. A lot of people haven't heard of this band. They were kind of like they weren't super big. They did get some following in the mid to late 80s, but it wasn't recognized like some of the bigger bands that were already prevalent in that era, like Def Leppard and Poison and whatnot. But this band, anyway, they started out in Japan. They started out as a band called Flatbacker. They started out in 1982 before coming to the U.S. Flatbacker, they were pretty popular in Japan. They had 3 albums, and they were, they're like on the cusp of the hair metal scene, but they were a bit heavier music than the hair metal scene, and or the glam metal, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, before coming to the U.S., I'm assuming that they were noticed by a few people here in the U.S., and one of those people was Gene Simmons. And Gene Simmons brought him over to the United States, and it's rumored that he's the reason that they changed their name from Flatbacker to Ezio. And it's the name is inspired by an ancient name for Hokkido, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But so they came to the United States, and they, like I said, they had released 3 albums in Japan as Flatbacker. So when they came to the United States, which I believe was in 1987, early 87, late 86, they came to the United States. And they were on Geffen label as and Gene Simmons produced their first 2 albums for them. Their first album they released in the United States was a self-titled album, and this is when I first heard of them. I really hadn't heard of them before as Flatbacker, and actually I was turned on to Ezio by I had just moved to Oregon, and I was staying at a friend's house, and they were into like this type of music, and they had actually heard of them because they had been to Japan, and they had heard of them as Flatbacker, and they had the album, their self-titled album, and that's when I started listening to them. And so they had that first album, and some of my favorite songs, I have 3 favorite songs from that album. Number 1 favorite song from that album is You're my House of a Thousand Pleasures. House of a Thousand Pleasures. And that song got some notoriety here in the United States, and as well as another one of the tracks off that album got pretty big, and that song is
You drive me wild. Flashback, heart attack.
Flashback Heart Attack. And that was a pretty well-known song here in the U.S. It didn't do any like big stuff, but it did get some radio play here in the United States. And then probably my most favorite off of that album that didn't really get hardly any radio play is Here It Comes.
My heart is bleeding, here it comes.
Now this album went on to do moderately alright, and they didn't release another album for 2 years until 1989, where they released an album that got a little bit more attention, and they got a little bit more popular. I wouldn't say they got super popular, but still, most people hadn't really heard of them. They may have heard their songs on the radio and maybe missed who the song was by or whatever, but this album was called Fire Fire, and a couple of my favorite songs from that album are Nightcrawler. That one is, it's pretty. It's a lot different than a lot of the style of music that was coming out at that time. You were right at the beginning of the grunge era, and you were kind of tapering off of the 80s glam metal scene, and you had a bunch of new wave music coming out and all kinds of stuff like that, and we were like in this like cauldron of various different styles of music. The 80s was a huge like melting pot for multiple genres of bands, and so they didn't really fit in a lot of the groups, but they were like somewhere on the heavier side of the glam metal situation. And my next song off that album that I really liked a lot was the actual title track of the album, Fire Fire.
Fire, fire.
And that song, excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold this morning. And that song, did have music video that was played on MTV. Like I said, they got a little bit more noticed for this album. Were heard by more people, and part of that was because MTV was an actual music television station at that time, not some stupid reality TV place to freaking watch stupid shows. It was actually 90% music. So yeah, and then my actual favorite song from this it was a little bit less known, and that song is Cold Blooded. And that song is a little bit more melodic. It's still heavy. It's a little bit slower of a of a pace, but not real slow. It's in my opinion, it was a lot better of a of a song from that style of genre of music. After this album was released, though, there started being some inner turmoil in the band, and they members in the band were divided on the direction of the band, and they didn't quite agree with the direction of the band, and so they split up in 1990. This wouldn't be the... Excuse me for a second, I need a drink. But this wouldn't be the end for the vocalist anyway, because he went on to sing for the band Loudness, and they were a little bit more popular band from Japan. They were already, pretty popular in the United States and whatnot, and so Masaki Yamada, the vocalist for EZO, in 1992 started singing for Loudness. And 2 years later, the drummer from EZO actually joined Loudness as well. His name is Hiro Homa. He was an excellent drummer. I mean, if you go and listen to any of the Flatbacker stuff or the EZO albums that they released here in the United States and actually listen to his drumming, he's an amazing drummer, actually. So, but anyway, this was short-lived for both of them anyway, and in 2000, so it was short-lived. It was like six years they were in this band, and then Loudness decided to bring back their original lineup, and they both of them left Loudness because Loudness wanted to bring back their original lineup. But Hirohoma and Masaki both, went on to do other projects and whatnot. And I don't know much about the guitarist after that, and I don't, and the bassist. Well, actually, what's funny is the not Hirohoma, but Masaki Yamada actually became a bass player for another band, which escapes my brain box right now. He actually went on to become a bass player for another band, so he was a really well-rounded musician himself. And so, but anyway, if you guys have never heard of EZO or Flatbacker, or even Loudness for that matter, you should go and look them up and check them out. They're both bands from Japan, from the early 80s is when they started, and then they went on to, like I said, Loudness brought back their original lineup in 2000. But if you never heard of these, you should look them up. They've got great music. Both bands do. I've been listening to them. I mean, I was 16 when I first heard of EZO, and Loudness was around the same time when I heard of Loudness as well. But that's not part of this video, so I didn't post anything about Loudness. But anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of Band of the Week, guys. And I appreciate you watching. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a comment in the comment section of a band that you might want me to feature on Band of the Week. And with that, I'm going to be out. Peace!